What's up, everybody? This is the VSM Real Estate Podcast, getting you closer to massively successful players in the Twin Cities real estate market. I'm your host, Andre Anderson, today joined by Dave Taurinskas with Reassurance Home Inspections. How you doing today, Dave?
Very good, Andre.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. You've been basically my standby, staple home inspector for a lot of my buyer clients over the past couple of years here. So it's always a good time, having you on board and having my buyers go through the house and you helping them out and whatnot. So I thought it would be a really great idea for you to come on and just kind of talk about yourself, what home inspections are like and why you need them. Maybe a little bit about the process of them, and maybe some updates on what's new in the home inspection industry and everything for some people that are either looking to get into real estate investing or just first time home buyers.
Sure. Well, hey, thank you for bringing me on today. Appreciate that.
Yeah, of course.
Well, I tell you, I got into the real estate business as a realtor back in the early 70s. I was working for an agency that virtually did everything: insurance, casualty, you name it.
Oh, wow.
So I even sold stock for the Minnesota Fighting Saints back in the day.
Really? Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was quite the full-service agency.
Yeah.
But anyway, I got into real estate and really liked it. At the time, it just wasn't my cup of tea. I had other things going on, and I'm more of a hands-on guy anyway. Over the years, I went through appraisal school, and that wasn't my cup of tea either. I just went back to the drawing board, and really my cup of tea was always working on homes, fixing things, painting, construction, all that stuff. I had some family in the trades when I was younger, and I always, listened to them when they were talking, and sometimes would work with them even. But as I got older, I needed to get into something that was making money, and real estate seemed like the thing to do it, to make that money, but you also need something that is fulfilling too. And as it turned out, home inspection came to be my calling. I went to St. Cloud, which is a teacher's college. I thought I'd get into education at one time. That didn't turn out so well, and but now I get to teach people about homes and the condition of homes. So it worked out pretty well in the end.
Yeah, no doubt. I know the first time I was representing myself for the first time I was working with a client. It was myself for buying a duplex, and the first time you took me through that duplex, I was just super oh my god, what the heck, there was just so much information. So it's definitely not an understatement when you say you help out educate people, because I learned so much just from that one. And every single time if there's a new kind of issue that arises for a certain property, taking buyers through, there's always something to add to my repertoire to also disseminate that information ahead of time, or hey, in the inspection he'll be saying this, make sure if you have questions on it, go into more detail and whatnot. So yeah.
I've heard that from many realtors that I've worked with over the years. They said that a good home inspector can make a realtor a much better realtor.
Yeah.
When I was a realtor, the thing I hated is writing an offer that didn't go anywhere because it ran into some hurdle after you wrote the offer. That's what home inspections are for. They're to bring those things to light ahead of time, so you don't get too far down the road before you run into something that's a deal breaker. So,
right. Yeah.
But I don't know. I really enjoy this job. It's going to be hard to get out of this job at some point because I really enjoy it. You go home at the end of the day and you feel like you've actually done something very positive. It's a very rewarding job, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Right. For sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
But there's some things going on. As far as I'm concerned, the big thing about the industry, the home inspection industry, is that there's national schools out there that teach people about home inspections. The problem is they're national schools that don't really teach people about Minnesota problems. When I got into the inspection business, that's the first thing I noticed. It's geez, the school is teaching me about these things that happen in Arizona or Florida or Hawaii. It's come on, this is Minnesota.
Right.
So what I wanted to do when I got into industry is change things to make things smoother and better across the board. We had to rely on realtors to schedule our appointments. I had something to do with changing that. But also, I also looked at the software that was available at the time for creating our reports, and that also national, if not worldwide, software that is generic for that big of an area. It just doesn't
doesn't fit.
Fit for Minnesota. So many of our home inspectors in our organization, the Midwest Association of Home Inspectors, that I'm the vice president of currently, have been using this software, and it's tailored for Minnesota problems. Our organization has Minnesota plumbers and electricians and contractors and specialists in various aspects of the home come in and teach us about Minnesota issues and what they see here on our Minnesota homes. And I use that education that I get from them to modify the software that I currently use, and I played a big role in that. It's taken me 10 years, but we've got a Minnesota version of our inspection software now, and I think it's very, very focused on Minnesota problems. And I hear feedback from many realtors and brokers that have seen many reports that say they've never seen reporting like this. So I'm pretty proud of that. You mentioned about what's new. I don't know if there's anything new, but the inspection industry is always changing. I mean, I don't inspect homes the same way today as I did 5 years ago.
Oh, how so?
We learn new things over time. I mean, the building industry is changing codes every 3 to 5 years.
True.
And home inspections are loosely based on the codes. We can't cite codes in a report because there's a licensed profession that does those things, and we aren't the final word on anything. So we have to use our training and our education, and when we report on conditions of a home, and I always try to stress to new inspectors: remember, we are never the final word. The home inspection industry is based on the 3 Ds of home inspection: discover, describe, and defer. And that's how we've always, tried to lead our members of our group, so they don't step over the line. I know I've heard realtors mention how some inspectors literally light their client's hair on fire. They might be able to find items, but they literally don't know how to explain many of these things. And we try to be, our organization is trying to be almost like a finishing school. Mm-hmm. We have what we call a roundtable meeting at least once a year, and the senior members describe how they write up their narratives in the software, and it really helps these younger guys do this. And once in a while, I'll have an inspector say, "How do you write this up?" I'll literally copy and send my narrative over to him, so he knows how this stuff should be written up. And then when he gets to see it, he knows how to describe it in those terms, so he doesn't say things that are too far over the line and say things that really may not be exactly true.
Right.
So it's important to not only find the things, but be able to educate your client in a manner that is educational and not doing something to try to impress your client. You're
look how much I know, and look how bad this property is.
Exactly. You're just out there really to educate.
Right.
But and again, another thing we try to strive for is to remind our buyers that we look at homes from 2 perspectives. It's a living space, so we look at health, safety, and liability issues, but also it's an investment for them. So we look at repairs and maintenance. Some of the inspectors I know do not get into the repair and maintenance end of it too much. They're looking for things that are highly critical, and that isn't the whole story. Sometimes a bunch of little things can be overwhelming to a new buyer.
That's very true. Yeah.
And my nephew, for example, was somebody who didn't think he needed a home inspector, so he bought a home, and it turned out to be kind of a money pit for him. It wasn't anything big, but it was tons of little things.
Right.
And it can happen to anybody, no matter who you are.
That's very true.
So anyway, like I say, the home inspection business to me is it's evolving all the time. There are new things that come out. I try to find new things on the internet all the time. Like gutter screens or fans or caulk, simple things like that can help my buyers maintain their home and actually have better performance out of their home if need be. Mm-hmm. But I really like the fact that these vendors come in. We've tried to work out even discounts with some of the vendors that come in, but we also refer business back to them. And for that great education that we get from these guys, it's really tremendous. And we've got a list of the vendors that we've worked with, and some of them that have given us discounts listed on our website of our national organization or of our state organization website. But I always have a directory page on my website to help out my clients, because some of these people were brought up in a household where the father was wealthy enough to hire people out, didn't really do anything themselves to train the children how to do a few things. So when they get to their own home, the father doesn't know how to do things, and neither do the kids. So they need a list of contractors to do that kind of stuff.
For sure, yeah. And I think that goes well into the 3Ds that you were kind of describing. I think whenever I've worked with some other inspectors now, I've worked with others that have been really good too, but there were a couple where they didn't really do that like defer piece, and they didn't really have a network of contractors or anything. And I always know I'm always referring, on that webpage that you have for contractors, and you have pretty much any kind of problem that you could have during the inspection, and you have multiple people to reach out to. I'm constantly referring, some business over there to like buyers if there's any kind of potential solutions there. At the same time, just having that third D, the defer, that's the difference it makes between, hey, look at me, I know all this knowledge, and look at how crappy this property is, and also like, hey, how can we get a solution here? Like, if this is still a workable deal for you, here are the people that you can contact. You can kind of educate yourself further on this specific issue, and then to see if this is something that you can work with the sellers on, because that is a key component, especially if it's like a really good house, or like, especially with how the market is right now, with multiple offers. Sometimes buyers are sitting on the sidelines for a couple months because they're just burnt out. You find that one property, there's an issue, but maybe you can actually work something out, So I think that is something that I've always really appreciated, that you have that list of contacts and being able to provide the solution there.
I agree. That is so important. And another thing that I've always done ever since I've been in the business, I always have put this out to all of my clients. For as long as they live in that home, they can always call me about future problems that come up. Yes, I can't predict the future, but if something does change in the future, I want them to know that they've got somebody knowledgeable about homes that they can call up and get some advice if need be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even if it's just sending a quick picture via email or over phone. I know you always say that to all my clients, and I know it's happened a couple times. Hey, what's this too? Like we have a little bit further of detail that we maybe want, and you're like follow up with them right away, and it's amazing. So
well, this is we've got the real estate industry's got a time limit to things. You got to move things forward in a timely fashion, and if you're not right there to answer questions, I think you're missing the boat as far as being helpful to these clients that are in this time frame.
Mm-hmm. Especially with how technology has changed the landscape of real estate even more. So
speaking of the landscape of real estate, as you know, in the last couple of years, it's been such a strong seller's market. A lot of these homes have not been fixed up very much before they go on the market. And I think the general condition of homes in the last couple of years has been way worse than it was.
Really? Wow.
Normally I have 50 to 85 items in a typical report. Yep. I've been running a little higher than that, probably 25% to 30% higher than that on many of the homes I'm inspecting now. Wow. And that's I think that's a reflection of the strong seller's market, because they know there's 10 other buyers behind any other any offer that'll take that house in any condition just about.
That's true. Yeah, no, I don't have the experience to make that observation, but it doesn't surprise me in the least bit. So,
and people should know too. I get calls to inspect brand new homes that have never been lived in. It's unusual if I don't find 30 things in a brand new home.
Yeah.
Because on new homes we're looking for workmanship, and with the shortage of good contractors out there, even brand new homes have issues that just haven't been done very well because the quality of contractors are just not out there building these new homes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. I know we did a deal, and you had inspected a new construction townhome for one of my clients this year, and lo and behold, there's always something happening, So, yeah, and it was the first time I heard that was super surprising to me, because I'm like, everything should be perfect. Nope. No, everyone's human. There's sometimes some things here and there. So, yeah.
Yeah, over this last 12 months or so, mold has been a big problem with the heavy rains we've had here in Minnesota this year.
It was really bad this spring, and in the summer.
Record rainfall here in Minnesota this year, and Wisconsin as well. And as far as wet basements go and mold development and stuff, moisture mitigation has really been a very big issue this year. I've probably have found more wet basements this year than I did even back in 14 when we had that deep, wet, heavy snow in the spring there. That year was bad, but this year has been worse all summer long. That in 14 it kind of ended after June, Oh yeah. But this year it's been rain every 3 to 5 days. We have rain,
it is. It was like this morning a little bit, and yesterday almost all day.
So the industry, like I say, it's always changing, and that's one of the reasons I really enjoy this thing. There's never a boring moment in this thing. You sometimes you see things that make you laugh, and sometimes you see things that give you a headache, and wonder why the house didn't burn down or why something like that didn't happen.
Right.
It's really unfortunate, but that's just the way the game is. Finding things every day that and another thing too. As long as I've been in this business, I see something new every week that I haven't seen before. Not just a homeowner deal that was done by that, but it's a constant learning experience, and I wish I knew as much about homes when I was 21 as I do now. Because I bought my first home when I was 21, and I've had many properties over the years, cabins by lakes and those issues, and rental properties, and homes I've done myself, and a constant job working on my daughter's house. So it's but it's and I'm kind of I help our professional organization find people to come in and educate us too, and I interview those people quite a bit before we have them come in. So it's been a great job. I really love this job, and I hope I can keep doing it for quite a few more years yet.
Yeah, so. I'm sure you will too. So yeah. So you spoke a little bit on the professional organization. Is that mostly kind of closed group for all inspectors, or do you ever have kind of like the public open to like taking a look at and attending those kind of?
Events? We meet the first Saturday of every month, September through May, and the public can come in. They have to. We have limited seating, so they have to get it okayed through Doug Palmer, our current president. But if we have enough seating, we do welcome. We've had realtors come in on a couple of things where they wish they knew a little bit more about a certain subject, and they've come in. But we have that posted. There's always on our website. It always tells you who our speaker is going to be and what time and where. Once in a while we take a road trip, but usually it's it's in the Shoreview Community Centers where we actually meet. Start at 9 o'clock to 11:30, and we've got a little bit bigger room this year, so we'll be able to seat a few more people. But the organization's been really good. Last Saturday we just met, and we had an electrician come in, and we almost couldn't bring the meeting to a close at 11:30 because the questions and answers were just flying. They were just flying back and forth, and we had a great guy in that I refer out quite a bit because he's a very smart electrician. When you see an electrician with an electrical engineering degree, you know you've got a good electrician.
Definitely.
But he, as much as I do know about electric, because I talk to this guy 2 or 3 times a week, I still learn some things because some questions came up that raised some things that I hadn't really been informed about.
Right.
And that's why these nice meetings every month are so important to us home inspectors in broadening our education and getting deeper into things, and we probably need to, but at least it gives us a really deep understanding of what's going on.
True. Very true.
And we don't necessarily have to and do write that stuff up in our narratives, in our reports, but it's just so we understand it, so we know if it's critical or not. That's a lot of times that's the important thing to get across to your buyers. Is this a serious thing that you need?
Very important and very urgent.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes, for example, there's a very well-known foundation guy in the state of Minnesota that's known throughout the country because he's so passionate about his job in foundations that he's invented things and patented things that other companies use.
That's amazing.
And he told me one time, he said, when I used to see a hairline crack in a foundation, I didn't think much of it, and I used to tell you guys it wasn't a big thing. I don't think that way anymore.
Really?
A hairline crack is the start of a big crack.
Yeah.
And a bigger problem. And if you don't get on it and understand what's causing it, you're going to have something that's going to be very expensive to fix.
That's true.
So even those professionals in those fields have changed the way they look at things, and they've passed that on to us in our line of thinking too. So it's been an important to have these guys in every month, and and tell us that. This electrician said the same thing, about codes. He said, I don't agree with every code here. He said, there's a lot of codes here in the entire industry, in every phase of the industry, not just electric, that have been influenced by the manufacturers of devices and products and stuff.
To make it easier to sell. And,
exactly. Yeah. Once they're mandatory in the codes, the companies got a gold.
Kind of less.
Yeah. They've got gold there, so no doubt about it. So sometimes, even the code industry has taken things out of the codes and realized they made a mistake, and then you put them back in. So they aren't flawless either. And we try to look at things from a more logical and practical point of view than just is this a moneymaker for the manufacturer?
Yeah, exactly.
Because sometimes it's something as simple as like the automatic door closers on garage house doors. They took them out of the codes. A bunch of people got injured and overcome by smoke from fires in the garage that's going back in the new codes coming out. So. Wow.
Yeah, they're there for a reason. And I would argue that there's definitely higher standards too. Every time that there's an inspection, it's kind of the code is the bare minimum, and especially if things are changing, going in and out of the code, you have to make sure that you have something higher, like much higher standards than that. Otherwise, you will have these house fires in the garage and all that kind of stuff, right? So
the standards of home inspectors are generally higher than codes in almost every respect. Mm-hmm. We can't get into every aspect of the codes because we can't see walls that are covered up by sheetrock or floors that are covered up by flooring and stuff. So we can't see everything that the codes can address. But for the things we can, we're generally above code standards in every way, shape, and form. So, and that's why we have to have this education from these professionals in those fields all the time.
And just the organization.
Just to give us some updated information.
Yeah. Did you have that website handy on top of your mind, by the way, for the organization?
Yes, it's the organization's called the Midwest Association of Home Inspectors.
Okay.
And the website address is mwahi.org.
Okay, perfect. Well, there you have it, everybody. Take a look at that if you want to.
Yeah.
I think you also mentioned, Minnesota specific. So for, a lot of our audience, if they're looking for a first-time home or maybe just looking to get a little bit more education and stuff, and they're kind of just starting out, what are like some major Minnesota issues that you kind of talk about usually during your first meetings with people or with the inspections that you find that are prevalent and everyone should take away from this conversation?
Well, I think for example, when I do a first-time home buyer seminar, I try to bring to the table what I think even a first-time home buyer should be aware of. It doesn't take a rocket scientist or any special education to look for things like staining on walls around the baseboard or staining on floors, or look for those areas because repetitive water infiltration in any given area, whether it's an attic or a basement, is a breeding ground for organic growth, like mold spores, mildew, bacteria, fungus. So those are the things that as far as hazardous or safety things on a home, I think that's one thing they can easily look for. And when I go in, I have a conductive and non-conductive moisture meters that I do a more involved test, but observation is of that is fairly easy to do sometimes. Mm-hmm. The other thing is if you see getting an unfinished utility room, you see wires hanging all over the place that aren't tacked up properly and don't look professional, it's probably the tip of the iceberg of a bigger problem where the homeowner thought because they could buy it themselves, they know how to do it themselves. Mm-hmm. And to me, the most important things in a house, as far as safety and health goes, are possible mold development, because mold can be deadly to some people, literally deadly. In fact, last year, I'll just tell you, the buyers that showed up at the house, in 4 occasions, we had to get out of the house immediately and get out on the front lawn by fresh air. We had a pregnant lady collapse on the living room floor. She was in that little short introductory talk that I give my clients. Yeah. I wasn't even halfway through that, and she got weak-kneed and went down on the living room floor, and we had to get her outside.
Wow.
And she was overcome by mold spore. Her husband found the house. She hadn't been in it yet.
Yeah.
So when she got
didn't
there,
know,
and
yeah.
and neither one of them knew that she was that sensitive to mold spore, and there was a ton of them in the house. They backed out of that deal.
Of course, yeah.
So, and I didn't even have a chance to tell them yet that I found moisture in the basement, and they hadn't had a mold test done yet. So,
right.
But it's something like that. And the other thing is electric. I see so many electrical issues that could have easily caused an electrical fire or shock. To me, those are the two biggest issues. And I know they have truth in housing inspections at many cities, but not all by far. I mean, I think there's maybe 15, 16 cities in Minnesota that have truth in housing inspections.
And just a handful.
Yeah, in the metro area. Yeah. And so it's if they can do just a few visual things. If you see things that don't look like they were done by a professional, it's probably a sign that the homeowner thought he was a handyman and did a lot of things himself. But it's I always tell people that are selling homes, there's a few things that you can always do on your home to take a lot of the things out of the report. Caulk around the taps and spouts, around the toilet. If it was caulked before, check and make sure the caulk is still in good shape and caulk those things up. If you can take a half a dozen or a dozen or 15, 20 things out of the report looks a lot cleaner.
Yeah.
And the buyers are most likely to move forward then on the home. And buyers and sell. When I go out and do a buyer inspection or a seller inspection, they're virtually the same inspection because the buyers want to know what the inspector the sellers want to know what the inspector for the buyers are going to bring up.
Right.
So they want virtually that same inspection. But if I always tell my realtors too, if you're out looking at a home with a buyer and you see something that is a potential problem or that you don't really fully understand, take a picture with your phone and shoot it over to me. I'll try to make a comment on that, on what I can see on the phone right while you're out in the field before you write an offer up. That's not going to go anywhere. And at some of these seminars I'm at, I tell the buyers that as well. I said, if you see something I can't answer every question because I'd have to be there to do a full analysis. But if I can give you some evaluation or some conclusions on what I'm seeing on that picture on my phone, I'll do that for you. So I just think that's something that it's such a quick thing. It doesn't take much time. You don't get many calls for it, and I think it's a great thing to offer buyers if they're looking for some answers and want to be an informed buyer going in.
And from a business perspective, it builds loyalty and everything like that. So it's definitely good.
Yeah. I just inspected the 7th child of a family I've been inspecting for, and it wasn't close either. It was a 2.5-hour one-way drive.
Oh wow!
He paid me extra for it, but nevertheless, when you've been in this business and doing it right and have loyalty, like you just said, like that, where they want every child to be inspected by me, it's like, wow, that's pretty cool. And I've got a bunch of families. I've done all the children and the parents repeatedly, so that's
amazing. Yeah.
When you've been in the business long enough, it's kind of nice to see that.
Yeah, the relationships,
Yeah.
So if everyone kind of liked, or if anyone really liked what you kind of what you were talking about here, whether it would be the organization or just talking about home inspections, and maybe they are, getting close to coming onto a purchase agreement and knocking something down, if they were interested in contacting you, how would they reach out to you?
They can either reach me by email, and my email is short. It's just RHIMN@comcast.net, or they can call me directly at 612-701-9672.
Oh, perfect. Well, yeah. I think that's all I had for you today, Dave. But thank you so much for joining us. It was fantastic, really informational, and just very good value. So.
All right. Well, thank you, Andre.
Yeah. All right. Take care, everyone.